wonderful to see you gathered here today. We do want to lift up that now that we have seated the family, we have about seating for about 4 or 5 more people over here. If people want to come and sit in the second row, that would be fine. Friends, we have gathered here to praise God and to witness to our faith as we celebrate the life of Ronald Elaine Smith. We come together in grief, acknowledging our human loss. May God grant us grace that in pain we may find comfort, in sorrow, hope, in death, resurrection. Jesus said, I am the resurrection and I am the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, shall they live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. I died, and behold, I am alive forevermore, and I hold the keys of hell and death. Because I live, you shall live also. Will you join me in an attitude of prayer? Eternal God, we praise you for the great company of saints, for all those who have finished their course in faith and now rest from their labor. We praise you for those dear to us whom we name before you. Especially we praise you for Ron, whom you have graciously received into your presence. To all of these, grant your peace. Let perpetual light shine upon them and help us so to believe where we have not seen, that your presence may lead us through our years and bring us at last with them into the joy of your home, not made with hands, but eternal in the heavens. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, let the people of God say, Amen. As you're able, I'm going to invite you to stand. We're going to sing a hymn. This is the day of new beginnings. The words will be on the screen, but if you're the kind of person who likes to look at the music, in the bread books, on number 383. You may be seated. Do you mind look at me and suspect that my name is not Jim Luther? And you would be right. My name is Jeanette Saundett, I'm the pastor here. And Jim is pastor across town at Grace United Methodist Church, where Nancy and Ron have been members for many decades. 60 years. Jim lives up in Oakhurst, and he cannot get out of his driveway. The snowplow did not come by, and he didn't have power, and he is stuck. So I will be doing Jim's part today. We will lift Jim in our prayers and all the community that this is just a temporary inconvenience and doesn't develop into something more serious. And that indeed we will enjoy a warm and moist summer, and our fire season will be less dramatic. In times such as these, we often turn to Scripture for words of comfort, words of inspiration, words of motivation. So we have several scriptures today that I share that not only bring comfort but remind us of God. The first is from the 16th Psalm. I will praise the Lord who counsels me. Even at night, my heart instructs me. I keep my eyes always on the Lord. With him at my right hand, I shall not be shaken. Therefore, my heart is glad, and my tongue rejoices. My body also will rest secure, because you will not abandon me to the realm of the dead. You make known to me the path of life. You will fill me with joy in your presence, with eternal pleasures at your right hand. And then a very familiar psalm, the 23rd Psalm. I am very confident that Ron memorized this in Sunday school growing up. Many people in this room also did. There are many translations in the Bible, but when it comes to the Psalms, King James has the best poetic interpretation. If you memorized this as a child, you're welcome to recite it with me. If you didn't, you're welcome to read along. It's in your bulletin, it's on the screen. And it was written, sorry, throwing things around, sorry. It was written 3,000 years ago. I just have to point that out to you. 3,000 years ago. And as we read it today, it still speaks truth to us. So when you join me in the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And then we'd like to share these words written by Paul in his letter to the church in Ephesus and in Philippi, Philippians chapter 3. But our citizenship is in heaven, and it is from there that we are expecting a Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ. He will transform the body of our humiliation, that it may be conformed to the body of his glory, by the power that also enables him to make all things subject to himself. And then these words that Jesus spoke to his disciples the night before his crucifixion, as recorded in the Gospel of John, the 14th chapter. Jesus says, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God. Believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many dwelling places. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and will take you to myself, so that where I am, there you may be also. And you know the way to the place where I am going. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not let them be afraid. You have heard me say to you, I am going away, and I am coming to you. If you love me, you would rejoice that I am going to the Father, because the Father is greater than I. We're going to take time now to sing a hymn that is precious to the family, Be Thou My Vision. Again, the words will be on the screen, but if you want to listen to the music, it's in your hymnal on page 451. And so what can we say about Ron? An amazing man, an amazing witness, an amazing legacy that he leaves. You know, many of you probably know that Ron enjoyed camping. And as I read that 23rd Psalm, I kind of imagine Ron kicked back by that big pasture in the sky, by the still waters, enjoying the peace that passes understanding. Right? And as much as these words bring us comfort and help us to recognize and honor that truth of eternal life, these words are so much more powerful as Ron knew them for daily living. We read in that 16th Psalm about how the words of God guide us daily. It says, even on my bed at night, my heart is connected with God, right? It instructs me. So that as we wake in the morning, we have new insights and new hope, redeemed, renewed vision. And Paul says this, our citizenship is in heaven. Our citizenship is in heaven. And that Jesus is the Savior who comes and transforms this body of humiliation. And I just thought that that was an amazing scripture to contemplate for a little bit, this body of humiliation, because in fact, that was Ron's life vocation, wasn't it? To deal with this body of humiliation. to help each of us be able to live our life as fully as possible, recognizing that our citizenship is in heaven, that there's a part of each one of us, something special and precious and divine and sacred and holy that is wrapped in this body of humiliation. And we spend all of our years trying to figure out this amazing dance we call life. How can we best move through our days in this particular body of humiliation? How can that part that is sacred and holy and divine really celebrate this amazing and magnificent world while encased in this body of humiliation? And I think that's part of the reason why so many people knew him as Dr. Ron, not just as Ron, or Dad or Grandpa, but Dr. Ron. I wasn't even his patient, and I knew him as Dr. Ron. Right? Because he devoted his life to helping people live as fully as possible in this body of humiliation. I never knew Ron in his very best years. He had retired by the time I knew him, and I had met him several times before he remembered we actually had met. But the setting that set that in his mind was when I met him in the emergency room as he sat next to my husband. And in that setting, he knew who he was, and he knew who I was. And he sat with my husband to comfort him and to give him strength as he was wrestling with his body of humiliation. But recognizing that there is something eternal wrapped in this temporary and mortal shell, I think that's why he was such a great doctor, because he ministered to the whole person. He didn't just recognize that you have a physical ailment, but he recognized that you are fully human, and that a part of that humanity is that spark of divine. That spark of divine that is in every person, that he could see, that he looked for, that he nurtured and encouraged, inspired in others. And because of that, because he recognized where his true citizenship was, he set his values and his priorities differently than many people might. That's why he's such an exceptional role model. Why we loved him so very deeply. Because of his capacity for love and his priority in making sure that you knew that you are a precious individual, not just wonderful because you're alive or something else. You, as an individual, are important and precious just how you are. And so he took time with his patients. He didn't skim on himself. But to do that, he also didn't skip on his family time. He made it a priority to be there for his family. To come home and have dinner with them and to check in, to get him to bed. He learned to play guitar, right? So that he could sing to him at night. Right? How many people in here did that? Oh my gosh. My kids are really happy I didn't. That's my husband's job. Yeah. Yeah, he wanted to be there. He wanted to be a great father. And after he got into bed, he went back to the hospital to do his evening rounds, so that his patients also knew that they were important and that he was keeping up on his case. was significant to him. And he did his best to help people experience that health and wholeness. But being a doctor, he knew the fullness of the humility of our body, right? That it is mortal. And that it will die. That can make a toll on one's life. If that's the end of the story. But he knew it wasn't. And he lived his life that way. Knowing that this is one chapter of an eternal life. And it's our privilege and our responsibility to live this life as fully and as generously as we can, reflecting the values of our Lord and Savior, where our citizenship really lies, to bring that into our world as fully as possible. And when our days are accomplished, we go forth to live again in a new chapter at home with Jesus. In that mansion, eternal, not made with hands, right? And we celebrate that. And Jesus said, you know, if you really love me, you're going to be happy. You'll be happy that I'm gone, because it's a better place. So I just want to take a moment to speak about that, because how many times do we hear that? Oh, don't be sad, they're in a better place now. Okay, so family, I want to say, go ahead and be sad. It's okay to acknowledge he's in a better place, but we're still here. And that Dr. Ron-shaped hole in our lives, it can ache. That grief truly honors the love that we have experienced. And it's necessary. It is necessary. It doesn't mean that you don't rejoice that he has completed his task here. It means that you loved him a lot. You loved him a lot. And so take all the time you need. Allow yourself to feel the pain and the loss. And as you can, to the fullness of the divine presence. Allow Jesus to come in and fill that void and ease that ache. And raise you up. Allow you to put one foot in front of the other. Keep moving forward. And allows that part that is Dr. Ron to continue to live in us. That as we move through the rest of the days that we have, we might follow that amazing example. Of love and making people feel precious and important, and knowing the beauty. That 23rd Psalm, it is wonderful and powerful, and it's a lovely image, but I just want you to really think about those words. Those words. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. And thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. We're not just talking about, sitting down and having a big feast and gloating at the people we don't like. That's not what it's about. It's about recognizing that life has a lot of struggles, that we face a lot of hardships day by day by day. And yet, in the midst of those hardships, God brings to us comfort and direction and beauty. Something amazing to celebrate every day. And this was Ron's life. That even though he faced hardships, even though he saw how painful it is to be trapped in this body of humiliation, He walked gracefully with his patients, with his family and his friends, and reminding us that there is still beauty and goodness and joy and love in the world. Every day is something to celebrate. We give thanks for this precious, precious man. And we ask that God would bless us, that we too would live our lives with such integrity that our lives will be a blessing to others. Thanks be to God. We come now to a time when we're going to share some really special and important memories of the life of Ron Smith. So I'm going to invite the granddaughters Alyssa and Tessa to come on up, and they're going to share stories about his life.
My name is Alyssa. This is Tessa. Then sings my soul, my Savior God to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. My family recognizes that line as lyrics to one of my grandpa's favorite hymns, one that he would always request at hymn sing. As we look back at his life and what he meant to us, it's obvious that he lived his life in praise to God and in service to the Lord. Ronald Delane Smith was born in 1931 to an Illinois farming family, Russell and Lois Smith. It may have been on the farm that he and his big brother Smitty learned such a strong work ethic. It wasn't unusual for Ron to hold down 2 or more jobs during college to make ends meet. And on the farm is probably where he gained a love of animals, especially dogs, and his enjoyment in being outside in nature.
His family moved to Clinton, Ohio when he was in high school. He played trumpet in the marching band, ran track, and joined the Science and Chess Club. In his senior year, he met Nancy Hathacurs, who moved to Clinton when her dad became the first pastor at First Methodist Church. They got to know each other better in youth group, but sparks didn't fly until they began corresponding by letter while attending different colleges. Ron earned his chemistry major and mathematics minor at the University of Dubuque, Iowa. He found time to participate in tennis, drama, Christian student outreach, and to play in band and orchestra. We wish that we could find the footage of his 3 years on the square dancing exposition team. We're guessing that he's a smooth dancer. He stayed active in church throughout his college years and was elected treasurer of the Methodist Student Movement, part of the National Conference of Methodist Youth.
It was at Dubuque that he felt called to become a doctor and possibly a medical missionary to serve the Lord through treating physical pain and suffering. By now, his future plans definitely included Nancy, as they fell in love after traveling to see each other on weekends, holidays, and over the summers. He thought that she was pretty, smart, and fun, and he liked that she came from a large, goofy family. She thought that he was very attentive and wonderful, and even more so each time that they were together. Their relationship did survive one major slip-up. On Valentine's Day, my grandpa sent her a sheep's heart in a gallon jar of formaldehyde from his school laboratory. His heart to her read, "I love you with all of my heart." Let's just say that she didn't see the humor in it for a long time. They were married on August 16, 1953 in Clinton and honeymooned at a nearby lake resort.
Grandma Nancy taught elementary school while Ron attended the University of Iowa in Iowa City to achieve his master's in public health and to earn his medical degree. These early married years balanced with Nancy's teaching, Ron's heavy school load, and their social calendar of church activities. Ron cheered on his beloved Iowa Hawkeyes football team that won the Big Ten Conference in his senior year. Iowa qualified for the national championship game, the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California. Ron, Nancy, and some of his friends made that long trip out west for the game and were not disappointed. New Year's Day, 1957 brought warm, sunny weather and a Hawkeye win over Oregon State College. It was a sweet victory. The Smiths marveled at the pleasant California winter and the citrus trees, which were loaded with oranges. Ron had already been accepted to complete his surgical residency following his graduation, and his California visit was reassuring of their out west.
Ron and Nancy arrived in Fresno in June 1957 and were greeted by 110-degree weather. Just slightly discouraged, they settled in to make a new home here and never lived anywhere else. They quickly found a church family at Grace Methodist Church and volunteered to serve in different capacities. During the 1960s, Ron most enjoyed working with the college students at church, serving as their Sunday school teacher and sponsor, and organizing field trips and campouts in Paris. The students returned their love by pulling practical jokes on Ron, including stuffing his home's back porch entirely with newspapers, smearing Vaseline on the door handles, and painting his car with messages of love and peace. He quickly had them wash it off, but most of the paint came off. Christian love can manifest itself in strange ways. Ron's good-hearted nature helped solidify the group as it faced a rapidly changing society. They relied on his leadership as young churchmen were drafted into the Vietnam War. They were blessed to be led by him.
In the midst of training to be a surgeon, Dr. Ron realized it was important to him to have a relationship with his patients. Quote, "I enjoyed talking to my patients who talked back to me," unquote. So he quit the surgical training program and became a general practitioner and later a family practitioner. It was the best decision of his professional life. He continued to enjoy treating patients of all ages until his retirement in 2006, sometimes serving multiple generations of families. Thousands of patient photos covered the bulletin boards of the exam rooms in his office. Dr. Ron loved his patients, and they loved him. He found it perfect, as well that he had so many people to share a joke with throughout his workday. His medical practice remained upbeat, even through the many challenges the profession faced and changes to medical insurance coverage and oversight. Ron marveled at the improvements in medical treatment, diagnostic testing, and medications. His family is grateful to his office staff, who became his second family. Many were loyal employees for decades. Together they built a very satisfying practice, serving so many patients, body and soul.
Nancy and Ron were blessed with their first long-awaited child, Connie, in 1958. Parenthood suited them well, and they grew the family to include Laura, Judy, Andy, and Todd. Ron loved spending time with them. The kids remember playing cat and mouse in the front hall with Dad, bike rides around the neighborhood, and marathon ping pong matches. Many holidays spent with relatives included waffle wall games with a wall and touch football led by Dad. He enjoyed teaching the game of tennis, and he himself played until he no longer could. The basketball hoop on the garage saw a lot of use. Huntington Boulevard encouraged jogging, sometimes even late at night when the summer heat finally cooled. And the backyard pool lent itself to so many happy parties. He encouraged his kids to enjoy music, paying for piano lessons and attending school concerts. He always let them play his record albums to share in his fondness for folk music and rock and roll. They thought it was cool that their dad also listened to radio station KYNO in the car. No arguing over musical tastes on the long road trips. Ron managed to carve out vacation time each summer for memorable car or train trips to visit family back in the Midwest. The family traveled all over California, enjoyed weekend camping trips and long backpacks. Vacations to Europe, Canada, and Alaska are definitely highlights. Ron liked to stay active and to follow sports. The kids picked up his allegiance to the San Francisco Giants and the 49ers. Dad took them to many Saturday games at Candlestick Park. How wonderful that he lived to celebrate 3 Giants World Series championships and so many Niners Super Bowl victories. They still remember all of his memorable cheers. Later, he enjoyed Fresno Bulldog games and got to witness their Freedom Bowl over USC. Ron was a part of so many warm family memories. Church picnics at Kearney, Roding, and Woodward Parks. Nighttime Easter egg hunts with flashlights. Silly personalized poems written in birthday cards. Christmas stockings stuffed with an orange, mom deodorant, and pipe cleaners. Watching cool movies in the dark. Flying kites in the park and on the beach at Westport. Barbecues and swimming at Lake Shirley, secure in Dad's arms to go down the giant slide. No electricity nights. His famous Sunday morning pancakes made with strawberry soda. His mountainous stacks of butter and crackers. He unsuccessfully started to sneak Hershey's chocolate kisses. So many kisses. Good and the bad of his serving as their youth group pastor, but mostly good. Saturday nights snuggled up together on Mom and Dad's bed to watch Mary Tyler Moore, The Bob Newhart Show, and Carol Burnett. And Dad made sure that the Smith family almost always owned a dog. McGraw, Mickey, Boo, Ebony, Gail, Shadow, and another Boo were beloved. Today, each Smith child owns and loves a dog.
Ron treasured his wife Nancy. They shared a strong devotion to God that included daily prayer. It was a priority that the Smiths were in constant attendance and service to their church. Ron respected Nancy's theology and enjoyed attending Bible studies and Sunday school together. Ron made 3 short-term medical mission trips to Bolivia, Nepal, and Paraguay, sponsored through the Methodist Church. When speaking of these trips, he liked to point out that Nancy and his children served as well, for they made many sacrifices while he was away. With their support, he fulfilled a long-held yearning to use his medical skills in poorer countries.
Ron and Nancy honored a weekly date night, holding season tickets to the Philharmonic and local theater communities. Ron was an enthusiastic eater, and together they enjoyed restaurants of many different cuisines. They made it a point to attend the Fresno Fair each year, never missing the required shish kebab sandwich and cinnamon roll. They both enjoyed the exhibits, especially the art exhibit and agriculture display. Ron and Nancy celebrated 65 years of marriage last August. That achievement represents a lot of love, understanding, and devotion. Both agree that their family has been the biggest blessing of their lives. It grew to include 3 sons-in-law and 2 daughters-in-law. They took great joy in the arrival of each of their 13 grandchildren. Once again, they attended many dance and music recitals, theater productions, and sporting events, and enjoyed them all.
When their 5 children were younger and still living at home, Ron tried so hard to make family dinner a priority each day. He may have to leave the house again afterwards to finish his hospital rounds or to attend a meeting, but he was there. Dinner started with a daily devotional and then personal news of the day, and jokes were shared over Mom's home-cooked meals. This time together was not rushed. It was important to Dad and Mom that the kids learn table manners and the art of conversation. It was at dinner that differing opinions were aired, eyes were opened, and possibly as they learned to agree and disagree, the perspectives shared were diverse. Ron and Nancy had the gift of hospitality. Over the years, they opened their home to 30 college students, foreign exchange students, pregnant single women, and foster children. The Smith kids had a lot of older brothers and sisters around that dinner table. They all agreed that the experience fostered empathy, open-mindedness, and to honor each person's dignity. Dad modeled acceptance of all of God's children. He walked the walk and he talked the talk.
Ronald Delane Smith was a son, brother, cousin, nephew, friend, husband, doctor, father, grandpa, servant, and most unique child of God. This very happy and special man will be greatly missed and remembered with oh so much love.
Then sings my soul, my Savior to God be, how great thou art, how great thou art.
My name is Emma Hansen-Smith. I'm one of Ron's 13 grandchildren and I have a quick story to share with you. So when I was 7, I got one of the luckiest grandchildren in the world, and I got to live with my grandparents for a little bit while we were still house hunting right after moving back to Fresno. And one day, Ron came home, we were all about to sit down for dinner, and he said, all day at work, I had the worst back pain. Every time I was sitting down at my desk, it felt like I was just being stabbed. But as soon as I was up walking around and talking to patients, pain completely went away. I could not figure out what was happening. By the end of the day, someone finally pointed out, Dr. Ron, do you realize that you have a clothespin pinned to the back of your shirt? It didn't take everyone very long to find out that I had been the one to pin the clothespin on the back of his shirt that morning, and that caused a pretty bad back pain for him. So this kind of became a game in the Smith family. So Christmases, Easters, Thanksgivings, all the grandchildren and even some of the adults played the game where we would try to pin clothespins on people in memory of our grandpa. We have 300 clothespins out in the reception hall. And if you would like to play the game as part of our Smith family tradition, please feel free. If not, one of the grandchildren might get you. But please take one in memory of Ron, so whenever you see a clothespin, you think of him, how wonderful of a grandfather he was. Thank you.
We have some other people that are going to share some stories. We're going to start with Dr. Rich West.
Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here and a great privilege for me to honor Dr. Ron and to be part of this celebration of his life. He was a great friend of mine and a mentor to me. He was a fine physician and inspiring to so many of us here in this room. I had the good fortune of working with him back in 1983. I had just come out of residency. I was moonlighting in the emergency room, and he said he was looking for somebody to cover while he was going to Nepal for a month, and I hadn't really been in practice. And I said, well, I'll try this. So I thought I'd jump into this busy practice, and I realized very quickly that I fell into the giant shoes of this great doctor. The first thing I realized that everybody loved Dr. Ron. His many generations of patients adored him. To his staff, he was all family. And to his colleagues, Ron was the best. They would say to me, if you're with Ron, we trust you, we welcome you, you're part of our team. And that fine reputation did me well as it kind of whisked me through those early weeks and months of my career. And we ended up working together for 8 years in his small office, shoulder to shoulder, and I just felt like I was being trained by a master physician. What I saw in Ron that was so unique was his razor-sharp medical care and his unceasing love and caring for his patients. In some ways, he was their doctor, he was their friend, and he was their minister. Never to judge, he always accepted people wherever they were, and he always was willing to help. Now, Ron served as the president of Community Hospital Medical Staff in 1985, and it was a tough run. It was a tough time. There was a lot of division in the medical staff, but Ron never shied away from his duties, and he always tried to bring the doctors together. And then, as many of you know, in 1987, Ron was selected by the California Academy of Family Physicians as the Family Physician of the Year for the whole state. An honor that he received with humility and gratitude. All who knew Ron knew that he was the best physician in California at that time. And I asked him, well, what's the formula? And he said, just see one patient at a time. Give them the best care and care for their heart and do it with a smile, a loving smile. That was Ron that I knew so well. To this day, I have several patients that were his patients years ago, and they come up to me and they say, how's Ron doing? And they send prayers and blessings to the whole Smith family. We've all been blessed by sharing time with Ron. He's taught us, he's inspired us, and he's healed us. He reminded us as doctors and health people to to stop beyond the paperwork and remember the souls of each and every patient that you see and approach them with a gentle smile and a loving heart. And boy, with all the HMO stuff going on now, those words ring true to me. Go down and find that spot where people are real people. So I learned so much from him. And to the Smith family, my condolences. You should all be so proud of your grandfather, of your great-grandfather, of your father. And to Nancy, special sympathy. You've been his rock for so long. He would tell me that all the time. I remember the words of Napoleon Hill, that behind every great man is an even greater loving wife. And that's so true. Bless you, Ron. I thank you for your many gifts, for sharing your healing touch, and for your deep friendship. May God bless you.
Now we're going to invite up Eric Renzoni.
And asked to share a few thoughts regarding my relationship with Ron and the Smith family. Early on, he had a belief in me long before I was able to believe in myself. And as a little 10-year-old, the impact that that has in shaping your life moving forward is priceless. It has become the cornerstone of my leadership approach with the teams that I work with. I work in a fairly large organization, and I've got 50 people that I work with directly as I develop them in their leadership. And this is one of the things that is my approach to them, is to believe in them before they're capable of believing in themselves. And that's what Ron did for me. That's a lifelong gift. And I just want to acknowledge that. That's huge. That's huge. One of the things I'd like to mention is the importance of the legacy. You know, oftentimes we think of legacy as something that we leave for people. But there's a definition of legacy that I always like to share, and that is that legacy is not something that we leave for someone, but it's something that we leave in someone. And as I look out and I see just a sampling of the lives that have been touched by Ron and Nancy, just look around at the impact that he's had on so many of us. And let that be an inspiration to you as you work on your legacy, day by day. We write a page in the book of our legacy, whether you're aware of it or not. And think about that as you move from this day forward. Let Ron's testimony in the way he's touched your life, let that be an inspiration to you as you work on your legacy. Okay? One of the other things I wanted to mention about Ron is Ron and Nancy early on planted the seeds that would someday lead me to my faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. And I want to, again, thank you for that the Lord used you both again and again to be a testimony for me. And again, that's something that I celebrate also. Wanted to share a few things. Lessons that I learned from my big brother. And perhaps some of you will relate to these also. To love unconditionally. Believe in others. Servant leadership. Service to community. Passion for learning. Compassion for the less fortunate. patience. Be the first to smile. Be a lifelong learner. Again, leadership. Say hello with a hug. Take an interest in others. Live your faith. Make God a priority. And again, these aren't in order of priority. Be yourself. Choose to be happy. Work hard for what you believe in. Be positive. Be friendly and approachable. Have confidence in yourself. The attitude of gratitude. Value your marriage. Manners and optimism. So I'll leave you with that. That's kind of a short list. But as you think about the impact that Ron had in your life, make your own list and let that be a guide as you work on your legacy day by day. Thank you.
Let me invite Lord Randy.
Thank you. It's slightly ironic right now that we're celebrating the life of really one of the great healers in the valley, and I come to you today with an obvious cold. And my cough drops. I don't panic because I have my handy wipes. My wife would insist that I wipe anything down that I touch, including one of you. So I see a lot of folks that I need to hug, and for your own sake today and your well-being next week, I probably won't be hugging you. Barbara, what a treat to see you. My goodness. I started at that church, Grace United Methodist, in 1995, the year I was born. So I think we reached the phase, Eric and I are a couple of those adolescents who somehow survived adolescence. And I think we can attribute so much of it to our dear mentor, Ron. Now, when you hear people talk about Dr. Smith, people speak of his capacity to give, his ability to hone in and be with you in those moments and make it feel like it's just yours. Literally the ability to be there, to be present with you in the moment. And that is such a gift that so many of us don't possess, and he did it with regularity. But I want to come at a little different angle today, because I can speak of those things. Ron reached me in so many ways, and I was a typical crazy adolescent that he somehow, looked the other way and still managed to put up with me. But he did things like, I don't know if you remember, Nancy, he co-signed for my first loan for a guitar. I don't know if you remember that. Yeah. I actually think it was more your idea than his, but I paid $11 a month for like 5 years for a guitar. $100 by the plenty. But he co-signed. I mean, he had no reason to do that other than he cared. I was in the hospital for about 3 months, I think my sophomore year of high school. And in addition to my cousin, Dr. Smith was there, I think likely almost every day for those 90+ days that I was in the hospital. He would come at night, make rounds at community hospital, and he would come to see me. I mean, for goodness sakes, we literally spent an evening, I remember watching the Mary Tyler Moore Show at Walt Disney together on my bed, right? Because that's who he was. But I want to approach him today from a little different angle, because there was another part of him that I think we all need to recognize and respect. And I'm going to use the term insanely daring. Ron was insanely daring, right? I'll give you 2 points to my case on that. One was that he worked with middle school kids like myself with joy. I mean, let's be honest, no one likes to be around middle school kids, I'm thinking of farming my grandkids out at some point when they're middle school age. Just haven't told my sons about that yet, but I probably will. So he was insanely daring. He worked with us gleefully. And when I say that, the other example that I want you to think about was, I know Ron liked to camp. I know that he would spend time outdoors. But we took a camping trip, and I use the word camping almost in jest, because this was a week-long venture, 6 days, that began on a Monday, ended on Saturday at Cedar Grove in the Kings Canyon forest. Went 50 miles, 50 miles in 6 days with middle school kids. The man was not well. We went to Heights, I think Wednesday or Thursday night. Is anybody here also with me on that trip by any chance? Yeah. Susan, you didn't go? No. You were always smarter than me. Anyway. Fantastic. Yes. So there are a number of us, and we were there. And we got, on Wednesday or Thursday night, we were at somewhere over 8,000 feet because we were in snow, and it was July. You're not supposed to see snow in the valley in July. We were high enough that we slept in snow. And the beauty of this, I only say insanely daring somewhat facetiously because I never saw a copy of Field and Stream with a great outdoorsman on Ron's coffee table. I'm not sure he had that kind of capacity, but he daringly took us out because he knew it was the right thing to do. We bickered, we argued. There was a rumor going around the group of us that my cousin had emptied all of his contents in all of our other bags, and he was carrying literally just his pack. I think it's true. If he's here, I'll point him out. And we didn't lean on Ron, but he provided us an opportunity to experience and begin to further understand who we were as people. We use words like perseverance. We use words like grit. And for so many young people, those are just words that have no foundation. Ron allowed us to reach our grit, to understand how we can persevere, to understand how I might want to yell at one of my teammates, but I had to help them out if they were tired. He got that, and he was there for us. I've been in education for 32 years, and as a school psychologist administrator, there's a field of youth development, and it is a formalized field now that really got its roots in about 1988 with tremendous research. And if you look at that research, Ron Smith wrote that book. Dr. Smith knew exactly what he was doing, giving us the opportunities to succeed, the opportunities to fail, and the opportunities to fail forward. And the message on that camping trip, as we somehow made it, because one of us, was either Mike or Larry, broke their toe. Was it you? No, it was me. Okay. Broke his toe in the last day or two, I think. And I think at some point we thought we were walking through the valley of the shadows of death. But man allowed us to grow, allowed us to experience that, and really knew what he was doing. He was a master at raising young people, and the message for us was, look around while you're here, open your eyes. God's everywhere. And what a special, wonderful, wonderful man. So thank you for the opportunity to speak. Thanks.
And now we'll find a flight cleanser.
I'm privileged to have known Ron as a friend, as my physician, and as his pastor for some 14 years while I was at Grace United Methodist Church. As a friend, it was not uncommon for Don and I to be at home in the evening, and suddenly our doorbell would ring, and we would go answer the door, and here was Dr. Ron with his faithful four-legged friend, Shadow. And we would open the door and he would come in and share with us and we with him some of the events of that day. And we would visit until Ron determined that it was probably time to go home because Nancy probably had dinner ready. We were also privileged to have Ron and Nancy come to our home for special meals throughout the year, whether it was Easter or Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner, whatever the case might be. That was always a privilege. Ron was also famous for walking Huntington Boulevard, and especially with that sign that said 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. On one occasion, he came to our house and his face was, he was trying to be sober, but he was also sort of laughing. He was walking down Huntington Boulevard, and this car came by that was going faster than he thought it should, and so he held up the sign and realized that it was the sheriff's deputy. The sheriff's deputy stopped and said to Dr. Ron, "Do you think I was going faster than I should?" And Ron's face was amazing as he said, "Oh, no, sir, no, sir." And the sheriff got back in his car and started driving on. And that stopped Ron from lifting that sign for about 5 minutes. I also knew Ron as my physician. Ron was more than just a physician. To a fault, I think, there were times when he failed to leave the issues of his patients at the office, but he would take them home. And I have a feeling there were nights when he laid awake thinking about them and wondering what he could do to resolve the issues at hand. One of the other things that Dr. Ron often did was carry that doctor's bag with him. And several times he said to me, "You know, I wish people would stop asking me medical questions when I'm not in the office." And I said to him, "You know, Dr. Ron, if you leave that bag at home, or in your car at least, they might not ask." But then if I'm at a ball game or something and someone has a heart attack, I don't have the equipment that I need to help those patients. Well, I think towards the end, he did put away his doctor's bag as he went about from place to place. Dr. Ron was also noted for doing home visits. How many physicians today do home visits? But Dr. Ron did, as long as he could. And we were beneficiaries of that a number of times. And when one of his patients died, he did not simply put the charts away, but he went to that patient's funeral, if at all possible, because that was a closing for him in terms of his relationship with that patient. Personally, on one occasion, on several years ago, 12 or 13 years ago, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. I went to Southern California for some special treatment. And while I was there, it became apparent that something fairly significant was going on because I was gaining weight and I was getting infections and yada, yada, yada. And so the physician in that particular facility talked to me but was unable to refer me to a specialist because of insurance issues. And so he said, "You know, if only I could talk to your physician in Fresno." And I said, "No problem." And I gave him his phone number. He called Dr. Ron, spoke to him for about 10 minutes, and then said to me, "When you get home this evening, go straight to his office and figure out what's going on." Because when the doctor in Southern California had poked around in my abdomen a bit, he said, "You've got a serious problem." Well, I knew that. The question was, how do we resolve it? So I came to back home, went straight to the office. Dr. Ron came into the examining room. My chart was probably that thick at that point. Didn't have the computers like you have today. He threw it on the table and he said, "Have I been missing something?" He laid me out on the table, poked around for about 5 seconds and said, "You've got a full bladder." We took care of that problem. We knew what the issue was. Another time when I came off of the roof faster than I should have, we called Dr. Ron to our home, even though he had just retired, and Ron carefully took me to ER, even though he said, "Probably you're doing okay, but let's check it out." Took me to ER, greased the process of going through that whole system, and it worked out well. He was great. As a pastor, Dr. Ron was involved in every aspect of the church throughout his whole life while he was a part of Grace United Methodist Church. He was on staff parish, which would be the personnel committee. He was a trustee, if he couldn't help doing the job, he made sure it got done. He was involved in Christian education. One of the classes that he taught throughout his time there was the Sunshine Class, a class for persons with special needs. He loved those kids, those adults. He would make sure they got to church by going to picking them up and taking them home. We developed a camping program for persons with handicapping conditions, and Dr. Ron volunteered his time as a physician for the many, many years that camp was a part of our lives, and he was able to be a part of it. On Thursday evenings at Grace Methodist, we developed a program for young people from the community. Dr. Ron was always involved in that program. And towards the end of the evening, he would race out to a store, buy a bunch of pizza and soda, bring it back. And as long as he could do that, he accomplished it, and when he could no longer do it, he gave us the money and told us, "Go get the pizza and the soda." And the kids loved him a great deal. He was a part of the choir at the church. As soon as he could get there, even though he was late sometimes, he enjoyed singing, and we enjoyed having him there, even though many times he was the brunt of a lot of the jokes and stories that were told, but he accepted them very graciously. And always, at the end of the choir rehearsal, led the group in a time of prayer. Dr. Ron was supportive of everyone that he came into contact with. It was Bill Fisk, who was here someplace, who wrote a note saying he appreciated Dr. Ron taking time out to drive to Mariposa to attend the memorial service, the gravesite service for his mother. I always felt as a pastor that Dr. Ron had my back. And when I worked as a counselor, Dr. Ron took out additional insurance so that I could use his office in the evenings after everybody else had cleared out. Dr. Ron received a certificate of appreciation from Grace United Methodist Church as the father of the year, which was signed by Robert Finley on June 17 of 1973. In conclusion, I would like to read a letter that we received from, I'm assuming, one of his youth from way back, Elizabeth Ann May, who wrote, "I will always remember joy, meeting at the house on Huntington Avenue, playing pool before swimming days, field trips to suburban out of town for MYF, and singing all the way there and back. Talk about patience. Trips to visit other houses of worship and hearing people speak in tongues. Multiple and frequent trips to Farrell's Ice Cream Parlor after the meetings, and multiple zoos. The choir, his faithful attendance at choir, and his love of singing. Practice. Working summers in the lab or in the business office. Acting as his Saturday receptionist and feeling part of the team. Dr. Ron Smith, patient, willing to take on a large group of teenagers at different stages of growth. Always there to listen, no matter the topic. Calm and measured. Mindful, there in the moment, listening, guiding, meeting you just where you were and needed to be. Caring, always finding the good in people, listening first and not second guessing, offering whatever he could to help. Respectful, treating you like a person and not a child, honoring your concern and thought processes. Unconditional love, no walls, always windows, sharing and giving of himself always. That was Dr. Ron. Dr. Ron, you will continue to live on in each of us as you influenced us, as you guided us, no matter what our age. We love you. Thank you, Nancy and Smith family, for allowing him to be a part of our lives. God bless you.
We're going to take a minute here and just check in. So who out here actually went to church with Dr. Ron? Do we have some? Look at this. Oh my gosh. Wonderful. Okay, who out here worked alongside as a colleague? Dr. Ron. Wonderful, wonderful. Let's see. Who out here was ever in, like, his pic, you know, he takes pictures. He hasn't even talked about his picture taking. Who was in the picture taking? Okay, now look around, take a look. Who was in the picture taking when he was going through the jump in the air phase? The jump in the air phase. Let's see that. Yes, very good. Well, one of the things that the family would like to do today as a part of our celebration of his life is to take pictures of you guys right now. And so we're going to invite Peter and Corey, I think they're going to come up here and just like take some pictures right now. So you're going to yeah, go ahead, do it. Fire two, take your picture. Yes. Get it looking right? Okay.
So we're going to do a panorama because there's so many of you. It's just so amazing that, you know, like has touched so many people. We're not sure when we'll all be together again, so we'd like to document this day. So smile.
Like this.
Okay, my people back. All right. Here we go. In the slide.
It is a picture.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I know that you guys all have wonderful stories because Dr. Ron was a big personality and he was a wonderful person. And so I want to invite you to make sure you have the guest card. Instead of guest book, we have guest cards. Please fill out your name and address, email, that kind of stuff. And on the back, you can write your stories. There are baskets as you're leaving to put it in. If you didn't get one on your way in, there's extras as you're leaving. You can go ahead and pick it up. There's baskets here, there's baskets over at the reception. Please take time to come to the reception and share your stories. You guys couldn't see Nancy's face like I could. But even while people were telling stories, she was going like, oh, what? I didn't know that. Right? There's always more to learn. So take time. Share stories with each other. Take time to find the family and share the stories, because it always lifts our hearts when we see how wonderful and beyond what we could see, how the lives of our loved ones have touched others. So please take time to come to reception. Write stories on here, share stories over there, and let's continue to celebrate this beautiful life. Okay, we're coming to a portion now where we're going to have a closing prayer, which will be followed by the Lord's Prayer. Many of you will know the Lord's Prayer, but if you don't, it is in your bulletin and it'll be up on the screen. So, will you join me in an attitude of prayer? Eternal God, you have shared with us the life of Ron. Before he was ours, he is yours. For all that Ron has given us to make us what we are. For that of him which lives and grows in each of us. And for his life. And now let us join together in the prayer that Jesus taught us to pray as we say, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. And so I'm going to invite you to stand. Well, before we stand, I'm going to give you a little bit of instructions, okay? So we're going to stand for the hymn, and then we're going to stay standing for the blessing. And after the blessing and the benediction, then I'm going to come and greet the family, and I'm going to escort the family outside. And then there will be ushers that will come and dismiss you by road to come out and greet the family and then come on over to the reception. On behalf of the family, I do want to say how very grateful we are that you took time to be here today. It encourages us and it warms our hearts to see you care. And so, as you're able, let's stand to sing. I sing a song of the saints of God. It's number 712. Loving God, we are in awe of the abundance of blessings you shower into our lives. We thank you for family and friends. We thank you even for this day. We are grateful for life and for this world, particularly now. We lift our prayers of thanksgiving for the food that has been grown and the many hands that have labored to bring us provisions. We ask that you would bless our feasting and our fellowship. Strengthen us to carry your love and to share it generously all our days, so that those to whom love is a stranger will find in us generous friends, and thereby each day to do a work to alleviate suffering of others. And this prayer that comes to us through Nancy's family. Oh Lord, support us all the day long of this troublous life, until the shadows lengthen and the evening comes, and the busy world is hushed, and the fever of life is over, and our work is done. And then, of thy great mercy, grant us a safe lodging and holy rest, and peace at the last. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Let the people of God say, Amen.
my mom now over at whatever it's called. My fourth church in town. I don't really like it over there. I don't really like it over there. But I want to be with my mom.